What is up, everybody? John McLean with FPS Outdoors and FPS Holsters here. And today we're going to talk about the TriggerCam 2.1. We're going to do a quick unboxing to show you what's inside, and then we're going to do a quick installation. I'm going to show you how to get that mounted onto your optic and another way to mount it depending on what you're using it for. But first, let's go ahead and open up the box and I'll talk about what's inside. First thing we're going to note is the camera. Oh, lo and behold, the TriggerCam is a camera, okay? This is a nice little housing mount, very sturdy, very robust. It is a little weighty, but I mean, give and take, right? Like, if you want to get some cool footage, you're probably going to have to add some weight to your optic and to your rifle to make it happen. I'm not sure what these, I'll have to put the weight in some text in the video so you can know how heavy it is. But in reality, it's not that bad, okay? As I almost drop it. We lift the portion that housed the camera up, and we've got a lens cleaning cloth. We have the multi-tool that is going to be used for the installation, uninstallation, and focusing and setup and all that kind of stuff. And then we have the USB cord, USB-C cord for charging, okay? From there we have some instruction manuals like the basic startup guide and the QR code to download the app, which you do need to get this optic up and going. And then at the very bottom, there's a bunch of spacers. Now the spacers go over to your optic first before you slide the camera on. And the important thing to note about the spacer, because depending upon how big your optic is, they've got different thicknesses that work with, I'm fairly certain they work with pretty much every optic that is available out on the market, unless it's something ridiculously super high custom that's either super big or super tiny, okay? So let's just say that. Now, I happen to know that on the Razor Gen 3, I've got to run this spacer. So how you know that it's the correct spacer is that when you install it, there should be a small gap between the spacer ends completely closing, okay? 1 to 2 millimeters, probably be okay, and for us Americans, that's like that much, okay? We want to have that little gap so that when we start to compress the ring on the camera to secure it, we're allowing that spacer to have a little bit of room in order to compress and fully close and seat properly on this optic, okay? The other tip that I will say is wherever the opening is for the retention piece on the optic, I suggest putting the opening of the spacer in the same gap so that when you close, it's literally going to be able to close and seat itself securely and evenly all the way across the rings instead of having it offset where the space of the spacer is off to the closed portion of this ring. So we're going to install the spacer with the lip on the forward side of the optic. We're then going to take our camera and slide it on. Now, here's the thing about this. We want to make sure that we seat the camera as far forward as we can. That's going to help to keep the focus of the camera and the optic in one kind of set location. It's also going to help alleviate any issues that may come from having, there's a little bit of extra oomph there on your optic now. So if you've got a really close or really tight kind of eye box, you just want to make sure this is pushed as far forward so that it doesn't really affect you in your shooting positions all that much, okay? From here, you can take the multi-tool and simply tighten down the set screw in order to secure the camera to the optic. Now, I would say this, you'll want it secured, but not super snug, because at this point, I would open up the app on my phone, I would get it set up through Bluetooth, and then I would start streaming the footage through my phone, and then I would line it up as far as how it sets with the reticle to make sure everything looks nice, clean, and straight. Now, there is one downside to this optic this scope being mounted in this orientation for me, and that is that I like to shoot with a hat. And as you can see, if I get behind this rifle and I put my eye in place, it pops my hat up out of place, all right? So, the other thing you could do is to take this camera, turn it 90 degrees, and tighten it down. Now, what does that do? What problem does that solve? And what problem does it create? The solution is now I can shoot comfortably wearing a hat without it being impeded by the body of the camera, okay? The downsides, it adds weight offset of just the top. It's off to the side, which if you're just shooting offhand might cause issues. But because I'm using it on a tripod with a Arca rail setup, or even if you're shooting with a bipod, it's probably not gonna be that big of a deal. The other reason I wouldn't run it this way would be for 3-gun, and that is because I would typically have either a red dot or offset irons on this side of the rifle. Now I could flip it to the other side, but the downside to that is now the camera would get in the way of me being able to reach my charging handle on my AR platform because I'm a right-handed shooter and I use my left hand to charge the rifle. So I would just keep it straight up and I just keep my hat running a little bit high when I shoot 3-gun. But for the purposes of coyote hunting, which is what I plan on taking this rifle out for next time I go out, I can have it set off to the side here and the footage is going to be filmed at 90 degrees. But luckily with video editing software, I can flip that footage back another 90 degrees and make it look like it was standing straight up the entire time anyway. So keep that in mind when you're mounting this, depending on what you're using it for and how you want to implement it. You're not limited to only keeping it on the top. You can rotate it, move it, because you can always fix it in post with editing and all that kind of fun stuff, okay? So that's a quick video on the unboxing and the installation of the TriggerCam 2.1. I'm going to include some contact info as far as like the website and even the fact that they now, see they're based out of South Africa, but they just opened up a US distribution store here, or not US distribution store, but US distribution. I'll figure out how to talk one of these days. Here in the US. So now if you do have issues, you will be able to get help from a US distribution location instead of having to wait for communication and the time set or offsets and everything from someone from South Africa. And I'm going to include the contact info for their US distribution in the description down below. But in the meantime, that's a quick video on the TriggerCam 2.1 and the installation. Hope you found it fun, useful, and enjoyable. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. And the next video, we're going to talk about getting it set up and how to link it with your phone, and then how to record video and download the video after it's done. So catch you on the next one.